Hello, my name is Stacy and welcome back to The Reads of an Apple, or welcome if you're here for the first time. I am here to do a mid-month wrap-up for the month of June 2022, and we're going to talk about the 9 books I have read this month already. Okay, so the first book, I started off June, kind of in the middle of a binge of a series. So I last month discovered Allie York, or I started reading. I have had it on my Kindle forever, but I started reading Allie York's Words for Nerds series. So to start June, I was picking up the 4th book in the series, which is Tall, Dork, and Handsome. This is Greer's book. She is a twin, not a tween. And it is her romance with Brian. Now, if you have not seen my ramblings on the previous 3 books in this series, so Words for Nerds is the name of the series. It is also the name of a comic book shop that 4 girlfriends own. And they've all known each other, I think, since they were like 5 years old, or since like elementary school. And the lady in the first book, Nora Lee, it was her parents' shop, and then she kind of inherited it when they retired and moved to Florida. And the comic shop is in Tennessee, and so they're all very nerdy, geeky, whatever term you want to use, but they also all have their own individual like niche of what their favorite fandom is. So Greer herself is really, really into comic books. She's been writing her own graphic novels since she was in high school, and she is very well versed in comics and like comic art. During the previous 3 books. So this is the 4th book in the series. In the previous 3 books, she has been in an on-again, off-again relationship with some guy. It was never labeled boyfriend, girlfriend, anything like that. But all the friends have this like rule where they're not considered boyfriend material until they know all of the names of the girls. And so Greer is a twin with Tuesday, and Tuesdays was book 3. But so it's like 2 friends and 2 twins, but they're all friends. But 2 of them are sisters. But anyway, so she has finally said enough with this guy. The way that he kind of was affecting her emotionally has caused strife in who she sees herself as a person, which has then bled into her relationships with her friends and her family. So she has decided for the next 6 months, she's going to focus on herself, and she creates a list of rules. And in the beginning of the book, she cuts her hair and dyes it pink, which is pretty cool. And there's rules like, or just goals of her, like she wants to start really taking the steps to get her graphic novel published, and never say no to a good opportunity, and try something new every day, and little things like that. And the last rule on her list is no men. But now that Tuesday in her book has come out as a fantasy author, her literary agent Brian has been around a lot more, and Brian and Greer have this instant attraction. They're both very into each other, but Brian, outside of being an agent, is also the creator and owner of a small comic publishing house. So he's very well versed in comics as well. And so the way that they're able to just talk about comics and art, and he's created his own comics, and it's just like this connection between them is just so it's so great. I just love it. And all of these books are a little insta-lovey, but I don't care, because it's like they feel more almost like fated mates, the way that the connections are between people. And Greer and Brian. This is probably the steamiest of the books. And their first date, man, I would like me a Brian for sure. He is fine. But I love this. This series is really, really good. I gave this book 5 stars. If you could not tell, I love Brian. I love Greer. Oh, man. I love this series because it's so, the main characters are so just accepting and, unapologetically nerds. And it just, they talk about Marvel, and they talk about DC, and they talk about Lord of the Rings, and they talk about video games, and like Firefly and Star Trek, and all the different fandoms are represented in their store. And I just love how, even though they each have their little thing, it's still like they're still just big nerds, and they're so welcoming to other nerds who want to hang out and do nerd things, and like D&D and board games. And anyway, I love this series. This series gives me the nerddom that I feel like is promised a lot in contemporary books like this, but never really delivers. But what I also really like about this is a lot of the times, like, I have read really good books where this is the case, like Wolfgang Wild, because Evie is a super nerd, and Mateo kind of isn't. Like, he's a general nerd, like most people know Batman and like the popular and like Marvel movies and stuff, but Evie's like a nerd. And I love that. And like, so she's paired with like a non-nerd. And a lot of the times I feel like there is like that trope, like the brains grows up and gets the beauty, and that kind of a trope. And here it's like nerds finding other nerds, and it just makes me so happy. I love this series. It's hard to tell. This book is tied with Tuesday's book as my favorite. But I gave this book 5 stars. I gave the first and third book 5 stars. I gave the second book 4.5 stars. I love this series, and yeah, as you can tell, we will move on because I can gush about this book all day. But the second book I read in the month of June is Let's Geek It On. This is book 5 in Word for Nerds. And so to kind of touch base on how this fits in, Ray is one of the girls. She is book 2. Her brother, who is dating and becomes fiance with Tuesday, who's book 3, Leo, he is a manager and eventually will become the owner of a bookstore across the street. And so in this book, Let's Geek It On, our couple is Amelia and Simon. And Amelia and Simon work for Leo at the bookshop. But now that Tuesday's come out as a fantasy author, she's decreasing her time. And then as Words for Nerds is kind of expanding and their business is booming, they do need more help. And with Greer kind of doing more with her graphic novel, Amelia is going to still work part-time for the bookstore, but now she's also working part-time for Words for Nerds. So she's hanging out with the girls more often, and and her little thing is like she wants to become a part of their friend group, and it's super cute. She's super cute. And so her and Simon have basically instantly connected. They were like instantly best friends, and Simon was actually getting ready to quit the word store or the bookstore because he has sold an app to a government agency, so he doesn't have to work for a while now, and he can just focus on creating a new app eventually at some point if he wants. Super smart. But on the day he's going to give his resignation, Amelia walks in. I think she's wearing like a Firefly t-shirt or something. They connect over Firefly. And they hit it off so well that he doesn't want to quit because he wants to, get to know her better. He's definitely instantly attracted to her. She kind of friend zones him. She does have thoughts about seeing him as more than a friend, but she's so staunch about not dating a coworker that she almost like turns off that she finds him attractive, and it's in her subconscious, so she's not conscious about it. And so it's super cute. Friends to lovers. So the impetus that kind of gets them together, which is the beginning of the book, is they are helping out, I want to say it like a D&D or some big event that's happening at Word for Nerds late night after hours, and her purse goes missing that has her rent money, her car keys, her house keys, all her stuff. And Simon offers to drive her home, but her landlord can't get her a key to get her inside like till the next day or something like that, so he lets her stay at his place. And when they hang out, they watch Firefly. They're both big Firefly, like, space fantasy show watchers, so there's a lot of Firefly and there's a lot of Star Trek references, which is super, especially the Firefly ones. I mean, speaking to my heart right there. But she ends up, I want to say, getting slightly tipsy, or she's just like slap happy, tired kind of a thing. And so when she's going to bed, she ends up kissing Simon, and then they kind of grope and make out. And once that line is crossed, they kind of become friends with benefits, and then just friends with feelings. I don't know. It felt very natural, and I loved it. It was super cute. I did wish it was a little bit longer. It was just about 200 pages, so it's definitely a shorter book or a longer novella, however you want to classify it, but I could definitely deal with it being a little bit longer. Now, I gave this book 4.5 stars, and I still really loved it. But my biggest, like, pet peeve with this book is in the beginning, a couple of times when we are in Simon's POV, he almost is like fourth wall breaking and apologizes to the reader for, like, sounding nerdy or being a nerd. And I was reading it, and I, like, had to stop, and I was like, Allie, what are you doing? What are you doing? The people who are enjoying these books, who have probably continued on with this series long enough to get to book 5, are probably nerds. And enjoying this type of fandom, and enjoying this representation, and don't apologize for being a nerd. That's like the whole, like, a good point of the first 4 books is that they are unapologetically nerds, and they're so accepting around other nerds. And I'm like, why is he apologizing to the reader for saying nerdy things and enjoying nerdy things? No, sir. It just felt weird because the other 4 books didn't have that at all. And it was very accepting of nerd culture. So, it just bothered me. But outside of that, I really enjoyed it. And it could have been longer. But I enjoy these books, so they could always be longer. And then I read the final book in the series. And that was the holiday novella, Walking in a Geeky Wonderland. Now, I gave this book 4 stars. But here's my disclaimer. It is 4 stars for what it is. A quick holiday novella, 125-ish pages. If I were to... I try not to rate based off of comparisons of other books. And I more just try to go off of my personal enjoyment and, like, how it affects my moods and stuff like that. But if I were to compare this to the other books in the series, it would definitely be more like a 3.5. But I'm going to give it 4, just kind of based by itself. I enjoyed this. It was this super cute holiday novella. So what it is Jake, who is another person that works with Amelia and Simon at the bookstore. So we find out he is actually the one that stole Amelia's purse. And he did it before Amelia and Simon were dating, obviously, because he was hoping he could hide her purse somewhere, misplace it. He didn't take anything out of it, didn't do anything like that. And then a little bit later, like a couple days later or whatever, find it and return it, and then use that goodwill which it's horrible. Okay, let's just say it's not his smartest move. But he was hoping to use that goodwill to, like, finagle a date out of her to kind of help push her past seeing him as just a coworker kind of a thing. And but things spiraled, got out of control. He never came clean. So this is now months later. He's finally coming clean to her. And she, was rightfully upset and kind of says some things to him, which, I mean, she could have done it a lot worse. But while this is happening at Words for Nerds, Rory and her friend are there visiting because they heard that the famous author, whatever, Tur Weathersby, I think is what Tuesday's author name is, likes to visit there. So they're there to try to hopefully get a signing, hopefully get Tuesday to sign their books, which is funny because she's always there because she runs the cafe that's connected to the bookstore, or to the comic store. But anyway, so she kind of overhears it, and after Amelia walks away, she's just like, wow, she could have gone a lot harder on you, dude. You got off easy. And they kind of have a little bit of banter back and forth, and then she kisses him, and then he kisses her back, and it's like this really cute, like, kismet meeting kind of a thing. And then he's like, well, I have to go back to work. I work at the bookstore across the street. If you're still in town when I get off, like, or when you're done here, feel free to stop by, and then maybe we can get together if you're still in town when I get off work later. And she does not show. And then we jump, this happens in like late summer, early fall. And then we jump to December. There's a little bit of a time jump. And her and her friend, which, sidebar here, quick sidebar. This is a perfect way for Allie York to either create a spin-off series or a continuation of this series, which please, 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 please do if you're watching this, Allie York. But Rory owns a all-female with her friends computer repair place, and they also all are a part of the same like video gaming team for all the team event things. And my watch is going off. So I just think that's a perfect way to like spin off. And they're set in like the big city, and Words for Nerds is like the suburban area outside this big city. So it's like kind of close, and they can go to Nashville and stuff for like dates, but it's like an hour-ish drive or whatever, kind of like me, like, because I'm in northern Colorado, but we can get to Denver easily if we wanted to go to Denver. I don't want to go to Denver. Traffic's too bad down there. But anyway, that's beside the point. But so Rory's friend doesn't want to go home or deal with her family for Christmas because there's weird situations there, and she convinces Rory that she's going to rent a cabin in the city where Words for Nerds is, and they're going to take part in they're gonna go to like the big holiday party that Words for Nerds is gonna have. And for the past several months, Rory cannot get Jake out of her head, and Jake cannot get Rory out of his head. And apparently I'm giving their shipping name Jory. And it's super cute. They bump into each other at the holiday party, and they reconnect, and then he drives her up to the cabin afterwards, and there's a little bit of snow, and he doesn't feel comfortable driving home in the middle of the night in the dark in the little bit of snow, and so he spends the night, and they reconnect, and it's super cute. I do have to say, while my biggest reason, I mean, it could have been longer, but my biggest reason for dropping it down was, understandably so, Amelia and Amelia's boyfriend Simon are still kind of angry with Jake. Amelia has forgiven him after the time jump, but they're not as close as they once were, with good reason. But I didn't like how our 4 original girls were so unaccepting of Jake, even beforehand. And one of the people kind of mentions that he thinks that it seemed like he comes off like he thinks they're better than him, and he's not really into nerdy stuff. He's more like, I don't know, a normal person where they'll play video games and stuff, but he's not like really in a fandom or anything like that. He just, he's seen the Batman movies and stuff, so he's like, he knows the nerd stuff. He's just not a nerd, if that makes sense. And, you know, the way he dresses differently. His family was a little more affluent, so, you know, his norm cozy clothes are like polos and loafers, or I don't know. So what bothered me about it is that they're so accepting of people and they're so welcoming to people. And I know he did something bad, but I didn't understand how everyone else could be so, I mean, they were rude to him. Let's be honest. They would ignore him at times. And give him dirty looks constantly. And I get he did something skeevy and it wasn't the right move. And it wasn't good, and it definitely spun out of control because she lost her money and all of that. Although he didn't take any of her money. I just didn't like the way that they treated him. They didn't feel like the characters that we saw in the previous books. And that kind of bothered me a little bit. Because he wanted to fit in. He wanted to belong. He liked them as people. He just felt like because he wasn't a huge total nerd, he didn't have anything to contribute to them. But he kept wanting to be around them because they were, to him, such nice, fun people, and he wanted to be their friends. But they were so unwelcoming to him that it just felt weird to me. But on the flip side, in the epilogue, we see him move in with Rory. Up in, I want to say, it's either Nashville or Knoxville. Or maybe they're in Nashville and the Words for Nerds is in Knoxville. I don't know Tennessee. But so when he moves in with Rory and they're like really going steady kind of a thing and getting seriously dating, he gets along with all of her friends and coworkers, and he feels like he's found his place to belong, which was really sweet. I just was like, I didn't like seeing the characters that I fell in love with just not being the characters that they were previously, if that makes sense. And this was also written, like, the publication date between the first few books were fairly close together, and then there was a little bit of a time jump for Amelia's book, and then another, like, publishing wise, another time jump for Jake's book, because Jake's book came out like last Christmas 2021. So I don't know if it was never planned or what, but anyway, I'm hoping that this leads to a spin-off series or a continuation of Words for Nerds, because these girls seem pretty cool. And I'd like to learn more about them. And they're all like computer repair people, which is super cool. You don't see like women mechanics very often, let alone like technology mechanics. I don't know. And I guess technically they're geeks because they're more on the technical side. But anyway, so I binged that series from the end of May to the beginning of June. Love the series. I don't think they're available in paperback, but if they're ever available in paperback, I will be buying them. I can definitely see myself rereading the first 4 books for sure. They speak to my nerd heart, and they give me what a lot of books have promised me, but haven't delivered on nerd-wise, so I love it. And Allie York has to be a part of the fandom, a part of the fandom, or someone in her family is. But, I mean, she has to be, because there's so many references in here that it's just, it's, if you are a nerd like me, or a geek like me, and enjoy nerd stuff and fandom cultures, definitely check these books out. They're amazing. I love them. Okay. Alrighty, then let's move on, because I spent over 20 minutes on just 3 books, which is partly why I decided to split up my wrap-ups into 2 a month. But okay, here we go. The next 3 will go fairly quick. I decided to do a reading vlog for 3 of my most anticipated releases of this year, and they all ended up coming out on May 24th. So I did a reading vlog. I will link it up here in the cards. But we'll kind of quickly touch base on these. So the first book I picked up was Dukes Do It Better by Bethany Bennett. This is the third book in her Misfits of Mayfair series. I love this book. 5 stars. Absolutely wonderful. A really great way to wrap up the trilogy. And I cannot wait to see where Bethany Bennett goes next, where her new series is going to be like. She is a new author. Her first book came out in 2020, and that's Any Rogue Will Do. And then her second book, which is my favorite of the trilogy, was West End Earl. And that came out in 2021, and then this one came out this year. West End Earl blew my mind. If you've seen my reading vlog for that earlier this year, that book alone will convince me to pick up any Bethany Bennett book she writes in the future. Even though I gave the first book 5 stars as well too. But this one, 5 stars. It was great. Okay, and then moving on. The second book that I read in the reading vlog was Always Practice Safe Hex by Juliette Cross. This is book 4 in her Stay a Spell series. Although technically it's the 5th book because there was a holiday anthology that was 3.5. But this is book 4 in Stay a Spell. This is Libby and Gareth's book. I also gave this 5 stars. Oh, I loved Gareth. I love learning more about the Grimms. I love Libby. I do have to say, as much as I loved Gareth, he did not dethrone Mateo as my book boyfriend of the series. He is, probably 3rd after Devraj. I don't know. I'm going to tie him. I'm going to tie him when you go, I think. But anyway, I love this. 5 stars. I cannot wait to see what happens next. In Jules' book, which is the next book, it should be out in October, I think is what Juliette's plans are. And we also got a lot of hints of Henry and Clara, which will be the final book in the series. And I cannot wait. Clara's my favorite sister, and oh my gosh, I cannot wait. Really good. Really good. I love Juliette Cross. I love Stay a Spell. If you like rom-coms, if you like paranormal books, you need to read these. They're amazing. Amazing. I love them. So, like I said before, watch my vlog to learn more about what I thought while I was reading it. Okay, and then the final book I read for that vlog, probably my most anticipated release for the year, How to Steal a Scoundrel's Heart by Vivienne Lorret. This is book 4 in her Mating Habits of Scoundrels series. I gave this book 5 stars. Vivienne Lorret, if you did not know, is one of my favorite modern historical romance authors. There is just something about her writing that really speaks to me, that sucks me in from the first letter, that the little thread of humor she has hits me, the way that she just writes families and friend groups, and Vivienne Lorret, the way she writes just is my style. I adore her. I adore her books. I have all of her books in paperback. And this, like I said, one of my most anticipated reads. When this book came out in May, when it went up for pre-order in November, I one-clicked it. Like, no thoughts. Pre-ordered as soon as she sent in her newsletter the pre-orders were up. I pre-ordered it. I've been waiting since I read the Wrong Lamarquesse last summer for Prue's book. And it did not disappoint. 5 stars. Now, I have seen a lot of ratings that are 4 stars, and I can understand that because there was a lot of the miscommunication trope at the end of the book, because it was a little much, I will say. But if I did not start this book at like 10 o'clock at night, I would have read it in one sitting. I could not put it down, and I only did because I literally couldn't hold my eyes open anymore. It did not dethrone The Wrong Marquess as my favorite in the series. I will give it that. The Wrong Marquess is still my favorite of the series. But this is such a good one. And it's so different. So Prue has kind of been in the country for the first 3 books, and we only really hear from her by her correspondence with her three friends, who are the ladies in the first 3 books. And she was found kissing a gentleman before like the first book takes place, and her father and she was ruined, even though it was just a kiss. And her father basically, and her family basically didn't support her, so they sent her with her aunt and uncle in the country, and they basically treat her, because she's ruined, that she has no use anymore, and so she pretty much is forced to become their servant and take care of them. But she receives a letter from her father with a caricature of her, or a miniature of her mother's portrait. She was mostly raised by her stepmother, and her mother had, like, I think it was 12 familial items that were passed down from mother to daughter as like a form of inheritance. And it was like, one of them's like her great aunt's picture, and then her great grandfather's on that side's military sword. And it's like just little trinkets and familial objects that is an inheritance that's passed down from mother to daughter. And in this letter from her father, she gets notified that he has given these items to her stepmother to do with as she will. So she is coming back to London in the height of the season to commit larceny and get her inheritance back before heading back to the country. And one of these items is a deed to a small cottage that is not entailed, so she will live out the rest of her life as a ruined spinster in this cottage. But when she's there, she ends up being helped by Leo, who is the Marquess of Savage, and he somehow finagles and offers to help her. And the way that they go about this is she, instead of the lady he was originally planning, Prue ends up signing a 4-month contract to become his mistress, and he will help her retrieve her lost inheritance items. And I've never read a mistress trope like this. I didn't know where this was gonna go, because I stayed away from all blurbs and stuff before picking this book up. And I did not know where it was gonna go. Oh my god. And their meeting, they're cute. When he's just like, when he and his former mistress, because they meet on the road, and she's walking to like the local area to catch the stagecoach to go back to London. And he's heading to Bath, because that's where he's taking his mistress that he's ending his contract with. So he's delivering her to Bath before coming back to London and finding a new mistress, because it's only 4-month contracts. And they run into each other, and I don't know, somehow they end up talking, and they're stuck there because there's sheep on the road, so they can't move anywhere. And then there's a dog that like got a hold of Prue's satchel, and so the dog's running around, and I don't know. I think the companion he's with asks why she's headed to London. Is she finally gonna like try to join the demi-monde, or make her way, take society by storm finally, or whatever? Because she was ruined in her first season. And they're like, why are you going to the season? And Prue says larceny and walks off. And he's just so intrigued by her. And I loved it. I loved it. So good. Yes, there was quite a bit of miscommunication at the end and not being open with things. And while I was so upset, I was like, just talk to each other. It's because I wanted them to be happy, because you knew they were both falling for each other. And so while I hate the miscommunication trope, it didn't quite bother me as much here. But, you know, I'm biased, let's just say it's Vivienne Lorret. I mean, I think it'd take a lot for Vivienne Lorret to not do for me to not give her book more than a 4 stars. So I loved it. Really great. Really fun. I went on way too long about it. So I probably repeated a lot of what I said in my reading vlog. But like I said, check out the reading vlog if you want to know more about all of those 3 books. Okay, then the last 3 books that I've read so far this month are all book club books or read-along books. So I picked up Wildfire, which is book 3 in Ilona Andrews' Hidden Legacy series. I'm doing this, I'm reading Hidden Legacy along with Heather from Hia Booktubes, Steph from Novelty Corner, Megan from Meowth Vader, and Izzy from Happy for Now as a part of the Hidden Legacy read-along. I love Ilona Andrews. This month has just so far been all books that I have loved by authors that I love, and I couldn't be happier. But anyway, book 3 in Hidden Legacy. Ugh, this is the wrap-up of Nevada and Connor's trilogy. If you haven't read Ilona Andrews, I would say Hidden Legacy is a really good place to start. We get closure in the first 3 books between Connor and Nevada, and then the next 3 books are the trilogy of Nevada's sister Catalina, of which the 6th book comes out in August, which is why they kind of jumped to this series. Originally, the 3 girls, except for Izzy, did the Kate Daniels read along, and I joined in along on that, and then we did the Blood Heir, which is the Aurelia Rider spinoff of Kate Daniels, and now we're doing Hidden Legacy. I think the plan is eventually to get through all of Ilona Andrews' backlist, but back to Wildfire. So we are at Rogan's or Connor's, Mad Rogan, whatever you want to call him. His ex-fiance shows up and her husband is missing, and she has come to Baylor Investigations to help find him because basically everybody else turned her down. And so they take the case. At the same time, there is a lot, and this case does eventually kind of go into the big conspiracy that's happening with Caesar and certain houses wanting to kind of cause chaos and take control and not use the same governmental system that's happening right now between the houses. And they want to cause chaos and a revolution kind of a thing. At the same time as this, Nevada is becoming more known as being a prime truth seeker, and her powers are kind of, more people are learning about them. She's being more on the spotlight. Her paternal grandmother has found her and is trying to convince / kidnap her to become part of her house. And so Nevada and her sisters are working on setting up their family as a new magical house, House Baylor. And so we have that. Plus we have Connor and Nevada's AGA, and it is so good. So good. So good. I love Ilona Andrews. I love Connor. I love Nevada. I cannot wait to read more in the series. 5 stars if you couldn't tell. I love them. I absolutely love them. Then, the other book we had to read this month is Diamond Fire, and this is the 3.5 novella in Hidden Legacy, and this one's really fun because this is in the viewpoint of Catalina, who's the second oldest sister, and she's going to be who the next 3 books are focusing on. But it is in her POV, but this is set during Connor and Nevada's wedding. So we get to learn, it's just, this was perfect. It's a perfect way to kind of tie up whatever tiny little threads were left from the first 3 books, but also kind of get you primed and ready to move on to Catalina's books, because we get her POV, we get to kind of sit with her more as our like main character and learn more of her magic and learn more about who she really is, and also get to see her do and use her investigation skills because she is part of the family business. And it was just so, I mean, color me surprised I'm gushing about an Ilona Andrews book. Let's be honest. But man, 5 stars. I loved it. Even one thing that is amazing about Ilona Andrews is even their novellas and side stories and short stories and even their free like one-page web fictions on their website. I feel like every single word that they write in a series just has such purpose and helps elevate and expand and grow the world in new and interesting ways. And do you need to read this? No, you don't need to read this. But this gives so much more insight to Catalina and her relationship with Arabella and her relationship with Bug and her relationship with Byrne and her relationship with Nevada. Plus we get Nevada and Rogan's marriage, and we get to meet Rogan's mom, and we get to meet Rogan's extended family, who we probably won't really see much ever again. But it's just like such a brilliant, seamlessly way to grow the universe they're creating here. And I felt the same thing with the Kate Daniels books, even the novellas. Everything they write has a purpose and expands the world in some way. And I just love it. It just makes everything just feel more real and expansive. And I just love Ilona Andrews. So 5 stars. I need to be good. I try to read my book club books before, like, as close as I can to when the live shows are. But man, do I want to pick up the next 2 books in this series really bad. But I have to wait till July. Okay, and then the 9th book I've read so far is also another book club book, and that was A Daring Pursuit by Kate Bateman. I read this for Rake Appreciation Society, which is hosted by Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life and Jen from the Book Refuge. And then this month we had Jessin from Jessin Reads Romance as a special guest. This is the 2nd book in her Ruthless Rivals series. Now, I have not read the first book. I do own the first book. I bought these both when they came out, but I had not read them yet. But I'm going to give this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's low stakes, very light, good steam, lots of fun. I mean, it's just a really good, solid historical romance, especially in today's historical romances. Yes, I just talked about 2 that I absolutely loved and gave 5 stars, but I feel like those are 2 exceptions to the rules because they're authors I knew going into that I would really, really enjoy. And Kate Bateman, this is the first time I'm reading a book by her. I've had her books on my TBR forever, but I have also read a lot of modern historical romances or recent historical romances in the last couple years that really just missed the mark for me. And this one did not. It was really good. I enjoyed it. 4 stars. It just didn't wow me. It didn't give me that extra oomph that I needed. It was very easy for me to put down, and it was just as easy to pick up. But it was easy for me to be like, when I'm reading late at night, for me to be like, okay, I'm at the end of the chapter. Do I want to read another one? No, I'm okay. I should probably go to bed. When, like, in the Bethany, Bennett and Vivienne Lorret, I'm just like, I don't care what time it is. I'm going to keep going until I can't hold my eyes open anymore. So that kind of is why I didn't give it 4 stars. It just didn't grip me writing style wise or universe wise or whatever. Also, I kept getting confused on why they were such rivals when they were basically childhood friends, and yeah, they picked on each other and whatever, but they weren't even really like enemies. And people during the live show were calling them frenemies, but they weren't even just frenemies. It was just like the 5-year-old kids that pick on each other because they like each other. So it wasn't even like really enemies. So I just didn't understand the rivals part. But maybe that's because I didn't read the first book. But I'm excited. I definitely will go back and read the first book. And I'm very excited to read the 3rd book. The cover is absolutely gorgeous. That's part of why I bought these books. Even though I hadn't read Kate Bateman before, when the first book came out, I heard some good reviews about it. Plus, when it came out, it has another beautiful clinch cover and so many historical covers are going away from the clinch covers, and it drives me nuts. So I wanted to buy the ones with the clinch covers because I want to be like, hey, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. These are the covers I want to buy. And I will buy the other covers, like the Bethany Bennett one, although the Bethany Bennett one isn't near as bad as some of the other ones are. But that's because I like Bethany Bennett. Anyway, 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. And that is it. We are through 9 books so far in June. I do have quite a few books still left on my TBR to do. I have the Smart Woman Read Romance to read later this month. I have the novella and the Throne of Glass book to read for the SJM along. And then I also have my 3 TBR prop books that I chose that I still have to get to. So I still have some good reading to do the rest of the month. So hopefully I can get them all done in time. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you read any of these books or look forward to any of these books, please let me know down below. I would love to talk to you about them because all of these books I loved. All of them were 4 stars. I mean, almost all of them were 5 stars. And then I had 1 4.5 and 2 4 stars. So far June has been an excellent reading month. Which is perfect because there are things going on in my life right now that aren't so super happy. So it's good I have at least books to bring me joy. On top of the Avalanche making it to the Stanley Cup finals. But just saying. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you all very, very soon.